Before we get started this season, I want to do something a little different. I have a journal sitting in front of me, and every episode this season, I want to start with a question. Not a question that I already have the perfect answer to, not something that I've rehearsed, just something I've had to sit with. And I think it's only right that the first one starts here. When did you realize you weren't okay? And what made you finally admit it to yourself? I think somewhere along the way, I convinced myself that I had to be okay before I could come back. When season one ended, I was proud of myself. I had created something that meant something to me. I let people into my world. I was honest. I wasn't pretending to have everything figured out. And somehow, by the time season two came around, I forgot that. Life got heavy. I was struggling with things I didn't know how to explain. My faith didn't feel the same. I didn't feel like myself. And every time I thought about sitting down behind this microphone, I kept thinking, what am I supposed to say? How could I talk about getting better when I wasn't better? How could I talk about getting closer to God when I didn't feel close to Him? How could I encourage somebody else when some days I couldn't even encourage myself? I didn't want to be a hypocrite, so I got quiet. And the longer I stayed quiet, the harder it became to come back. I started wondering if maybe I couldn't do this anymore. Maybe I had lost whatever it was that made me create Lynn's Place in the first place. But the truth is, the silence wasn't because I had nothing to say. I was drowning, and I didn't see a way out. I couldn't find the words to describe what it felt like on the inside. Maybe I was waiting to come back with the testimony, with an ending, with some beautiful lesson about what all this taught me. But I don't have that yet. I'm still in it. And maybe coming back doesn't mean I'm okay. Maybe coming back just means I'm finally willing to talk about it. Hey, loves, and welcome back to Lynn's Place, a place where we talk about faith, identity, womanhood, and the quiet works of becoming. If you've been here since season one, first of all, thank you. Seriously. And if this is your first time at Lynn's Place, you picked one heck of an episode to walk in on. But maybe that's actually the perfect place to start. Because season two isn't starting with me having everything together. It's starting with the truth. I almost didn't come back. I don't mean I almost pushed the date back. I don't mean I needed a little break. I mean, seriously, considered Lynn's Place had had its run. So let's talk about how I got there. The crazy part is, when season one ended, I wasn't burnt out. I was proud. I remember thinking, I really did that. 12 episodes. I took this little idea that had been sitting inside of me and turned into something real. And I was already thinking about season two. I had the title. I had started working on a new logo. I knew I wanted the show to grow. I knew I wanted to tell deeper stories. I wanted to reach more women. I wanted to be more honest. The only thing I didn't have was episodes. Not one, but at the time I wasn't married. I told myself, girl, enjoy your summer. Enjoy your husband. Enjoy your anniversary. Live a little bit. And then we'll get back to business. And that's exactly what I had planned to do. Until one random Monday. I was going through the clothes for our anniversary trip. Nothing dramatic was happening. I wasn't sitting somewhere crying over the podcast. I was literally packing our suitcases. And suddenly it hit me. Season two starts in 2 weeks. And I had nothing. No episodes planned. No scripts. Nothing recorded. Nada. And that night, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing the same thought. You don't have anything for this podcast. Over and over. And initially I thought I had writer's block. But it wasn't writer's block. Because I could have came up with topics, I could have Googled something, I could have made a list of cute becoming topics and sat down here and talked about them. But I didn't want to do that because none of it felt real. And if you listened to Lynn's Place before, you know that's the whole point of this space. I don't want to just say something because it sounds good. I need to mean it. And suddenly, I didn't know what it meant anymore. This is where it gets harder to talk about. Because while I was supposed to be preparing for season 2, my real life was getting heavier. My husband and I were approaching our first wedding anniversary, and I was ecstatic about that. Okay, I love my husband. I love being married. We had made it through our first year, and I was excited to celebrate. But at the same time, I was hurting. And I think that's something I've had to learn the hard way. You can be grateful for your life and still be hurting inside of it. These two things can exist at the same time. Because while I was preparing to celebrate our 1 year marriage, there was another part of our story that I couldn't stop thinking about. We still don't have a baby. If you've been here since season 1, you know I have infertility problems, and that's not new to me. This has been years. Years of hoping, years of praying, years of thinking, maybe this month. Years of paying attention to every little thing my body does. And then another negative test. I don't think people always understand what a negative pregnancy test feels like when you've been trying for years. Because you're not just looking at one line on a test. You're looking at another month. Another prayer that didn't get answered the way you wanted. Another version of the future you let yourself imagine that isn't happening yet. And after enough of those, you start protecting yourself. At least I did. I didn't want to get excited anymore. I didn't want to think something meant something. I didn't want to convince myself maybe this is it. Just to end up right back in the same place. And somewhere in all of that, I started losing pieces of myself. I wasn't just sad about not being pregnant anymore. I was sad. Period. I started isolating myself. There were days I didn't want to leave the house. I wasn't sleeping right. I didn't want to go places by myself. And then there was church. There was this one Sunday in particular that I remember. I had already missed church, and I told myself, you're going today. I tried. I really did. I remember basically giving myself a little pep talk. Okay, you got 20 minutes. Get yourself together. Get dressed. We're going to church. Because that's what I thought I needed to do. Push through it. Get out of the house. Go worship. Go hear the word. Go do the thing that normally helps you when you're not okay. And I couldn't do it. 20 minutes passed, and I still couldn't make myself go. And I remember my husband saying something, or maybe it was just the way he said it. But I can hear what I felt like disappointment in his voice. And that hurt. Not because he was cruel to me. He wasn't. He would never. It hurt because I was already disappointed in myself. So I'm thinking he's disappointed in you too. And I remember sitting with that and feeling like, who is this? because this isn't me. I'm the person who goes to church when things get hard. I'm the person who prays. I'm the person who believes. And now the place that I normally run to was somewhere I couldn't even make myself walk into. That's when I knew this was deeper than me just being sad about another negative pregnancy test. Something in me was changing. I didn't feel like myself. And the hardest part was, I didn't know how to get back to her. Because I knew that I believed. I knew what I had prayed. I knew what people had told me about God's timing. And I was tired. I was tired of trying to figure out what God was doing. I was tired of wondering if I wasn't praying enough, if my faith wasn't strong enough, if there was something I was supposed to learn that somehow I haven't learned yet. And I know how that sounds coming from somebody whose podcast talks about faith. But that's exactly why I stopped talking. Because then there was guilt. I will look around at my life and think, what is wrong with you? You have a husband who loves and adores you. You have a home. You have people who care about you. You created something you're proud of. There are good things happening in your life. Why can't you just be happy? And I didn't have an answer. I could laugh one day, go somewhere, have fun, feel like myself for a few hours, and then the heaviness would come sit down like it never left. Sometimes I couldn't even tell you what triggered it. That's what scared me. Because eventually it wasn't just, I'm having a bad day. It became, I don't feel like me. And then I would look at Lynn's Place, a podcast about faith, identity, womanhood, becoming. And I'm sitting here thinking, girl, you don't even know who you are right now. What am I supposed to turn this microphone on and say? How am I supposed to talk about becoming when I feel lost? How am I supposed to talk about faith when I'm struggling to understand mine? How am I supposed to encourage another woman to keep going when there are days when I don't know what keep going is supposed to look like for me? And that's when I started believing I needed to fix myself before I could come back. I needed to get closer to God again. I needed to feel better. I needed to get my motivation back. I needed to have some kind of breakthrough. I needed to have something to teach you, quote unquote. Because I thought the woman sitting behind the microphone needed to be further along than the woman listening to it. And looking back, I think that's where I got Lynn's Place completely wrong. Because this was never supposed to be a place where I sat on one side of the microphone with all the answers. I was supposed to be a place where we could sit in the uncomfortable parts together. But when it became my uncomfortable part, I didn't know how to do that. So instead, I disappeared. And underneath all of that was something else I didn't really want to admit. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I didn't want to turn this microphone on and say, trust God. Keep going. Everything happens for a reason. When inside I was thinking, does it? I didn't want to tell somebody else how to get closer to God when I didn't feel close to Him myself. I thought struggling somehow disqualified me from speaking. If I hadn't overcome it, I couldn't talk about it. If I didn't have the testimony yet, I needed to stay quiet. But there's a problem with that. If we only talk about our lives after everything works out, then we're leaving out the part where most people actually need somebody. The middle. The part where you don't know what's going to happen. The part where you're still angry, still praying, still questioning, still getting out of bed and doing the best you can. That's where I was. And honestly, in some ways, that's still where I am. The longer I didn't record, the worse I felt about not recording. Because now it wasn't just, I don't know what to say. It became, maybe I can't do this anymore. Maybe season 1 was it. Maybe I had this little moment where I was creative and passionate and excited, and that was gone. And that hurt a little. Because Lynn's Place wasn't just something I decided to do. I created this because I needed a place like this. A place where we could talk about womanhood, marriage, faith, identity, starting over, becoming. Things that happen when nobody is clapping for you. And suddenly I didn't feel like I belonged in the very place that I created. That's a hard thing to admit. I felt like I was failing at something that belonged to me. And that's when taking a break started turning into, I'm done. So after all of that, why am I sitting here? Here's the part I'm supposed to tell you. There was a big moment. Everything got better. There wasn't. It hasn't. God didn't send me a flashing sign that said, Michelle, record the podcast. I didn't wake up one morning completely healed. I didn't suddenly understand God's plan. I didn't get the answer I've been praying for. My life didn't magically become easier. Honestly, that's important for me to say. Because for a while, I think I was waiting for one of those things to happen. I kept thinking eventually I would feel better. I would get my motivation back. I'd have something happen that would make all of this make sense. And then I would come back. But then kept moving. And the longer I waited, the more embarrassed I became. Because season 2 was supposed to have happened. I had talked about it. I had promoted it. I had given you guys a date. And then I moved it. And after I moved it again. I still wasn't ready. That's embarrassing. Because when you create something publicly, people see when you follow through. And they see when you don't. And I started thinking, what am I supposed to say now? How do you disappear and then just come back? Do I explain everything? Do I pretend nothing happened? Do I quietly start posting again and hope nobody asks? And the more I thought about it, the bigger coming back became in my head. Until eventually I had to ask myself a different question. What if I'm never ready? What if there isn't a morning where I wake up and suddenly feel like the old me? What if I don't get the answer first? What if my faith is still complicated? What if I'm still figuring out who I am? Does that mean I never get to create again? Does that mean I never get to talk again? Does it mean that this part of me has to stay buried until everything else in my life gets better? And I really sat with that. And I knew the answer was no. Because somewhere underneath all of the sadness, all of the questioning, all of the embarrassment, I miss this. I really miss this. I miss sitting behind this microphone, creating something from nothing. I miss thinking about an episode and wondering who might hear it at exactly the right time. I miss seeing somebody comment, I needed this. I miss the conversations. I miss you guys. But I think more than anything, I miss the version of me who created Lynn's Place. And for a while, I thought I would never find her again. But that's not how this works. I don't need to find the woman I was. I need to make room for the woman I am now. Because she's different. She's been through some things. She's questioning some things. She's a little more tired. I'm a little less interested in pretending. And I definitely don't have all the answers. But I still have something to say. And that's when it finally clicked for me. I had been waiting for permission to speak again. And nobody took that permission away from me. But me. I decided I couldn't talk until I was better. I decided I couldn't encourage somebody while I was struggling. I decided my story wasn't worth telling until I knew how it ended. And I don't believe that anymore. Because maybe somebody listening doesn't need to hear the woman standing on the other side of saying, look, I made it. Maybe she needs to hear somebody say, I'm still in it too. And that baby I can do. I can be honest. I can tell you what I don't know. I can tell you when I'm struggling. I can tell you when I'm angry. I can tell you that I'm grateful and I'm hurting at the same time. I can talk about God while still admitting that sometimes I don't understand what he's doing. I can show it without turning every painful thing into a lesson before I finish living it. And that's what Lynn's Place was supposed to be all along. Not me sitting here trying to teach you how to become, but us becoming together. So I'm back. And I need to say this part clearly. I'm not coming back because I'm better. I'm back because I stopped making better the requirement. I'm not coming back because I have it figured out. I'm coming back with unfinished stories. I'm coming back with questions. I'm coming back with parts of my life that still hurt. And I'm coming back with faith that doesn't always look pretty as it used to. And I'm coming back knowing that maybe another day when I struggle, I won't have all the answers still. But at least this time, my struggle doesn't automatically mean I have to disappear. Season 1 introduced you to Lynn's Place. I think Season 2 is going to introduce you to Lynn. Not the polished version. Not the version with the lesson already wrapped up. Not the woman who had it figured out. Just me. Still becoming. Still believing. Still questioning. Still here. And that's enough. And for the first time in a while, I believe that it is. So if you're listening to this and you're somewhere in your own middle right now, I want you to know that's exactly where we're meeting this season. I'm not giving you a 5-step plan. I'm not giving you a cute quote and pretending it's going to fix everything. We're going to talk about some things while they're still messy. Some conversations might have answers, some might not. There will be faith here. There will also be questions. There will be laughter. Probably a lot of tears. And there will be truth. Because this season, I'm not showing up as the woman who had it figured out. I'm showing up as the woman who's still becoming. And if you are too, pull up a chair. There's a place for you here. Welcome back to Lynn's Place. Welcome to season 2. I'm really glad I came back. And remember, you're still becoming.